Today we are in a different spot because I got up early and did chores and then got sweaty and took a shower, so I'm looking red and my hair is still wet, but I put on lipstick, so surely that means it's time to film. Yes. I'm waiting for the laundry machine to finish up and for some laundry to finish soaking. We're in transit, so thought I would take advantage and talk to you guys about how my reading for Q1 2023 went. I like doing these videos because A, it's helpful for me at the end of the year to just go back and see what made the top for each quarter. Especially the further we get away from it, it becomes hard for me to remember everything. So it's helpful for me. And I also just like to sort of check in on how things are trending, how reading is going, and let you guys know what for me, I think are truly like the best of the best for the year, or for that quarter at least. What is truly the best of the best for that quarter. So we're going to start with my quarterly stats and then we'll transition to the actual best books. So I will timestamp for those of you who hate stats. I know you're out there, you're very vociferous, so don't worry. You're not gonna have to sit through it. You can just click ahead to the timestamp. So I read a total of 84 books in January, February, March. That is a lot, but also makes sense because of my autoimmune disease, I do tend to hibernate now during the winter. So now that the spring is here, I'm venturing back out a little bit more. We'll see. But anyway, I did read 84 books in the first quarter, a total of 27,518 pages, and an average book length of 328 pages. The average age of book I read was 5 years old, and the average amount of time it had been on my TBR was 8-ish months. I paid for 39% of the books that I read. The rest I got from the library or for free or from a publisher, gift, whatever. And the average amount I paid per book was $5.67. Of the books that I read, 65 of them I owned and 19 I did not own. Number one place I got books from was Amazon, which makes sense because I'm a Kindle user. Number two was from publishers, and number three was from Kindle Unlimited. And then genre-wise, tie for the biggest genre was between mystery and speculative romance, like mystery thriller, speculative romance. Number three was any kind of fantasy novel, and then number four was contemporary romance. And then following that is nonfiction, horror, and sci-fi, and then a little bit of everything else rounding it out. Let's see here. We'll save ratings for last. A little more detailed age distribution here. You can see that the most read category for me was 2023. So that makes sense. I read advanced reader copies. And then following that was the 2010s, which I thought was kind of interesting. I guess pleased to tell you that we're at least starting the year off with not such an intense gender disparity. So I read more from men or neither men or women, sometimes non-binary folks, sometimes mixed gender writers. I read 18 from non-women, which is better than normal. And then I'm roughly at 50-50 for like me versus not like me. This is my category where I try to have half of the books I read be by or about people who are not like me in some meaningful way in their identity. So slightly, I have one book off my 50-50, pretty much met that goal, which is exciting. Picking up on my audio a little bit, if I keep trending in this direction this year, I will be doing well. I am purposely listening to audiobooks when I'm in parts of sewing where I don't have to think and do math. So whenever I'm in those parts, I've been listening to audiobooks, so I'm getting through a little bit more than I have in the last few years since I started working from home. But I read less YA or middle grade than I normally do. I read only 4 of those, which is a lot less than the last couple of years. So I read slightly more in series than in standalones, which seems about right to me. Like if I were guessing, I would guess 60 to 65% of what I read is in series, so that checks out. And actually I did pretty good on reading new to me authors, so I read 56% repeat authors, but that's close to 50-50, so I feel good that I'm, not just completely stuck in a rut here. And then I think that those were all of the stats I compiled, except for my ratings. So let's talk about that. Distribution wise, I had a ton of 4-star ratings, which makes sense because this has felt like a really good reading year so far, very strong. Even if they're not things that I'm you know, A plus, absolutely loving. To me, a 4-star is like a really high B plus or an A minus. So to have that be where my bell curve is peaking is absolutely fantastic. I had 9 4.5 stars already and 3 5 stars already this year, which is astounding. That's almost as many 5 stars as I had in the entirety of 2022. So that is super lovely to see. I definitely had some big misses, which you guys have heard about, but for the most part, I'm gonna tell you this feels like a really strong reading quarter. My average rating for the quarter was 3.56. So really, by the numbers at least, this feels like a very strong reading quarter. So let's keep that energy into the spring. Here's hoping, because by the end of the quarter, I could feel myself starting to lose, you know, burn out a little bit. But I think once I get back into, you know, leaving my hibernation chamber a little bit more, hopefully reading will feel a little fresher to me. So let's start talking about the actual books that were the biggest hits for this quarter. And I'm gonna start with my 4.5 stars and then with my 3 5 stars. Let's go by genre, why not? Starting with, how about fantasy? Or I guess like speculative, sci-fi fantasy. Let's start there. Okay, so first of all, I gave the last 2 books in the Fitz and the Fool series / the overall Realm of the Elderling series 4.5 stars. This was a very emotional reading experience for me because I think I'd finally reached the point where I can binge Robin Hobb. So I read all 3 of the books in these trilogies in 2 weeks. They're very chunky and I'm very proud of myself. Now, granted, some of that was because I was not focusing. So I tend to be a very big theme reader or character reader with Hobb, and I wasn't focusing on that so much. This was much more plot-based reading. So I think I was able to go a little faster because I wasn't absorbing as much. I was just sort of along for the ride with the story. But yeah, there's some things about these books that I have critiques of, but overall, are they 2 of the best fantasy novels that I have read and will read this year? Yes. Are they 2 of the best fantasy novels I've ever read? Also, yes. So for me, fantastic, loved it. You will see, well, there's one more book to talk about in this, so I'll save that note for when we get there, but yes, gave both of these 4.5 stars. I gave Sea of Tranquility by Emily St. John Mandel 4.5 stars. This was a part, actually, you know what? Both of these were, so I'll mention this now. I did a reading BookTuber's favorite books of 2022 kind of video, which was a fantastic reading project and yielded my best reading month by the numbers on record. Like, my friends did not steer me wrong here. I basically picked books that were already on my radar or TBR that were on those lists, and it was absolutely magical. So, Sea of Tranquility was a pick from My Name is Maddie Ness, and she was totally right. I picked this up because this had so much buzz at the end of last year. It was on a ton of sort of mainstream, like newspaper kind of best of the year lists, and I've been meaning to read this author for a while, so this felt like the time to do it, and I totally see why this was such a big hit and why it has gotten such warm critical reception. I think the writing is really lovely. It deals with the kind of dystopian elements it includes, I think, in a really thought-provoking way that's not just sort of facile, which can be the case, I think, sometimes in sci-fi that is trying to be deep. Sometimes I think it's a little faux deep. And this one, I think, actually has a lot to think about, a lot to talk about. This is actually going to be our book club pick for Patreon. I'm pretty sure it's winning in the polls right now, so I assume that's what will happen. And yeah, I just really think this one lives up to the hype, and I can't wait to read more from this author. I'm definitely going to go back and read the first 2 books, which apparently are sort of spoiled-ish by this, just so you know, but I found out what that spoiler is, and yeah, I mean, I guess it is, but like, loosely. So if you're a stickler for spoilers, which some people are, don't read this one first. If you're like me and you kind of don't care as much about that, then go for it. This totally reads like a standalone. And then out there was another pick from My Name is Maddie Ness, and I absolutely love this. I originally gave it 4 stars because this definitely has misses for me. This is a short story collection, and all of the stories are speculative, like kind of sci-fi-y type stories. And there's some misses in this for me. They're not all great, but there's so much that this gets right. It's so distinctive and wackadoo, like really nutty kind of stories in here that I think for me really worked. Won't work for everyone, which is true for most things that are kind of going for something. It's going to work for some people and not for others, which will be a theme as we progress in this, I just realized. But yeah, so this, if you are looking for speculative short stories that are weird, I think that this could definitely be something you're interested in. It has a lot to say about online dating, which I think is really cool, and sort of like gender, it's like feminist themes in all of the stories. So a lot about gender and kind of like gender roles. So yeah, this one was a big hit for me. Moving on, let's do the romance, because both of the ones that I gave 4.5 stars to are speculative romance. So first of all, Artec by Honey Phillips. This is on Kindle Unlimited. So if you're looking for fun alien romance series on Kindle Unlimited, this is one that I would recommend. And the reason I felt like I had to give Artec 4.5 stars was just that it is my kind of speculative romance book that is alien, you know, like marriage of convenience type story. Like it really hit what I personally enjoy in that kind of story. Spot on. It is the first book in a series of 7 books. It's a very consistent series quality wise. I think the last one kind of was definitely the worst one, but most of them I think are pretty consistent apart from that last one and I guess the second one. But most of them I thought were really great, and this one is setting that series up, and the setup is that it's based on 7 brides for 7 brothers. So it's these 7 aliens who are not biologically brothers, but they all fought in this war together. They have settled in this frontier planet, and they are acquiring brides, let's say, in an interesting way. And this first one is just very much a we're not in love, but we're gonna make this work kind of story, which tends to really work for me. It was just these books are exactly what I like in terms of having a wholesomeness or a sweetness to them alongside the smut and alongside the weird alien stuff. So if that is appealing to you, I think that this series is great, and Artec is the first one, and I think the best one? Either that one or Frantor, one of the two. Anyway, speaking of wholesomeness alongside of the smut, the Hex series, What the Hex? The first one was called Go Hex Yourself. This is What the Hex by Jessica Clare. Here's the thing. This one is not as good as the first one, and I get why people don't always love Jessica Clare / Ruby Dixon's humor. For me, it works. This was so over the top and campy. I just loved it. That is another one of my discoveries from the quarter, is that even when I'm reading something and I'm like, yeah, this is quality-wise, might not be the best. It doesn't matter though, because I'm having so much fun, and this is doing what I want it to do in terms of just being over the top and fun and going for it. This goes for it, and I love it. So the setup for this is it's a paranormal series where based around witches. So in this one, our main character she is genetically able to be essentially an apprentice or a familiar to a witch. It's very rare that those opportunities come up, and she is worried she's never going to get the chance. The witch in question is banned from having a familiar for however long. They come to an agreement where she's going to secretly be his familiar, but they're going to cover that by pretending to date. Things go from there. This is so over the top and wacky, and I loved it. I love this series so, so much. Speaking of, all 3 of my mystery thriller / horror ones, I think are campy in one way or the other, in a way that's either gonna work or not work for you. The disclaimer here is these are not gonna be for everyone, but they were for me because they were just so entertaining to me and I liked what they were doing. So, horror-wise, A House with Good Bones by T. Kingfisher. This is the least, I would say, campy of the 3, but there's just like an edge of that, I think, in all of T. Kingfisher's writing, because she always has a little bit of a lightness of touch, a little bit of fun, a little bit of a wink to the audience that for me really works alongside some of the darker themes and setups that she explores. I think that juxtaposition for me is very effective. So this is one where it's a haunted house story. It also has a lot of like plant-based horror, and it's a woman coming back to her mom's house. Her mom is living in her grandma's house and something is wrong. Metaphorically, I think that this is about the older generation drifting to the far right and the younger generation being like, WTF, what's going on? This isn't you. Like, what are you doing? I think that's kind of metaphorically what some of this is about, but I just think that this is a fun time. If you like T. Kingfisher, I think you're gonna enjoy this one. So this was great. One step further on the camp scale. I think both of these are probably equally campy, actually. Both of these are pretty campy. The Last Word by Taylor Adams comes out in April. I don't know if it'll be out by the time that you've seen this or not, but anyway, comes out in April. This is, maybe think like reverse Misery as the setup here, because Our main character writes a 1-star review and the author is displeased. And she starts having stalkery things happen that she quickly associates to that author. And things progress from there. There's a metatextual element of this because it also includes a manuscript of somebody writing the story of what's going on. I think that the author uses that to great comedic effect in certain places because there'll be like a hard cut out of the actual thing that's happening to the manuscript version of what's happening in a way that is very funny. The humor in this really worked for me. The darkness in this worked for me in terms of some of the themes. This is a lot about grief. And it's a suspense, I would say, because I don't know that if you're looking for a thrill, I don't know if this is going to deliver because it's more the growing dread of knowing what's going to happen and waiting for it to happen. That's more the vibe of this one. For me, that was very effective. If you're looking for a big surprise, I don't know that this is the thriller for you. I do think it's more of a suspense and just a metatextual campy good time, but I had the best time reading this. This was so entertaining, which is the main thing I'm looking for in this kind of book. Speaking of which, The Writing Retreat by Julia Bartz is also just hugely entertaining for me. Again, very similar to The Last Word. I think if you're looking for a thrill, this may not be for you because this is more about suspense. You kind of know where the story is going, but you're waiting for everything to unfold. And it goes in some wackadoo, wacky places. Like it goes there, TM. And I appreciate that. Like I thought that this got really over the top and fun. And this is a lot about the darkness of relationships between women, both in friendships and in sexual relationships, and the blurring of line between friendship and sexual relationships. The setup for this is that the main character gets selected to go to a writing retreat hosted by her all-time favorite author at a point in her life when she's kind of at her lowest. And so they all get to this snowed in writer's retreat and they all just kind of start going crazy together. So yeah, this is divisive. This is not one I think this isn't universally recommendable. I don't know that everybody is going to love this, but for me, this really, really worked. It was very entertaining. And I've heard back from a lot of you guys, either people saying like, I should have listened to you, you're right, this was not for me. Or people saying, no, I totally see what you're saying and I absolutely had the best time. So I think that this is kind of a divisive one. For me, the fun of this really made it work. And then last, a memoir in terms of my 4.5 stars, Somebody's Daughter by Ashley C. Ford. This is just a really impactful, short little memoir that has really direct writing. Like the writing style is very confrontational and has a lot of space for the reader to fill in. I think if you're looking for a memoir where the author has done the work and puts the thoughts that they have about the situations that they were in on page, you might find this frustrating. But what I liked about this was that the author presents these anecdotes and scenes very purposefully and lets you kind of fill in the messiness around her feelings about both of her parents, basically, for very different reasons. Because her father was incarcerated and she didn't know why for a long time, and her mom just had a lot of problems, and she was largely raised by her grandma, and so her grandma is a great character in this. Yeah, I just think that this is it's a really good example of a very focused, well-executed memoir. Beautifully told. Yeah, this was just really, really good. So then we get to our 3 5.5 stars. And if I had to rank them, at number 3, I would say The Last Quintista by Donna Barbara Iguera. This is a middle grade sci-fi that absolutely destroyed me. I was crying from almost the jump of this. The setup is our main character is living on a version of Earth where they know that there is a comet about to hit the planet. They are able to get a select group of people off of the planet to try to colonize what they think is a planet that will support human life. And her parents and her brother are selected, but her grandma is not. So like right out the gate, the devastation of like her leaving her grandma is so much. And then it's, they're put into sleep, but what's going on during the sleep, what's gonna happen, things don't go as planned while they're all put under, both for her and for humanity writ large. This is about her when she wakes up, trying to figure out what's going on. Her grandma was a storyteller, so she knows all of these beautiful stories. Yeah, it's a Newbery Award winner. You don't need me to tell you it's great, but this is so beautiful, absolutely devastating, absolutely devastating. This made me cry so much. And I just thought that this was really fantastic. This is from the same publisher, by the way, as A Lot's Away. And the actual physicality of their books is so lovely. And both of the stories that I've read from them have been really wonderful. A Lot's Away didn't hit me in the same way, but I can really recognize how high quality it was. So I am definitely on the lookout for things from Levine Querida because, yeah, they seem to be doing it right over there. Wrong Place, Wrong Time, I think is absolutely, it's like it's my kind of thriller. It has a speculative element, and I just think it's pretty much perfectly executed. This one is our main character is a mom, and her son has been acting kind of weird. He's like 18. Her son's been acting kind of weird, but he is walking home one night. She's walking him walk towards the house. This man approaches him, and her son stabs the man, and she's absolutely devastated, horrified. She goes to sleep, wakes up the next day, and it is the same day at the beginning. And so she is moving back in time, and she figures out that it's because something is supposed to change to keep this from happening. So she's finding out about who this man is, how he's connected to her son and her family. And this is a lot about the passage of time and sort of the way that you cannot appreciate the little moments in life when they're happening, the day-to-day moments. It's only when you look back at them that you can like have a certain amount of just nostalgia or wistfulness for them. But in the moment, you're just living your life. I think that that was really beautifully captured. The mystery element itself, I thought was really engaging and interesting. And I just think that this is a really perfectly done book. Like it does what it's trying to do so well. It's really well written and really well paced. So yeah, so good. And my number one, who's surprised? No one. Fool's Assassin by Robin Hobb. This is the first book in the Fits in the Fool series, and talk about like existential wistfulness or contemplating time. I think part of the beauty of this is just seeing where Fitz is at this stage of his life. This has some elements in it that are sort of like a fairy tale, but it's told with a certain amount of realism. And I think that that is a mode that Robin Hobb really works in. And I believe this is what we ended up picking as our number one for our ranking video, if I'm remembering rightly, which I support. My personal favorite still is The Mad Ship, but if you want to go check out the ranking video that I did in collaboration with some other folks who have finished the series, you can check that out. It's alive. That's up on my channel. And I thought that was a really fun discussion with those folks and hearing the different perspectives. And yeah, anyway, so everybody seemed to have different favorite books, which I think just speaks to the strength of the Realm of the Elderling series as a whole. But yeah, I've read 16 books plus a novella in that series. It's been quite a ride, and this is definitely this series was a great way to end it. So yeah, this is my favorite. So yeah, those were my favorite books of the quarter. I feel like as I was getting into this, I started talking more and more about the books, which happens when you're talking about books you love. But anyway, let me know what you thought about any of these. If you've read any of them on my recommendation or just general buzz, let me know that in the comments below. And yeah, I think that that will do it for me for now. So if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, follow me on the social medias if you are so inclined. I have all that information listed in the description box below, and I think that that will do it. I hope you're having an absolutely lovely day today, and I will just talk to you soon. Bye!